spent the majority of my career in the United Kingdom, primarily in Scotland and a few years in Birmingham at Aston University. Over the last 5 years, though, I moved to Australia, and it was an interesting move. I moved in what used to be the Center for Learning and Teaching at the university, which then was devolved into the faculties. I was grasped by the Faculty of Medicine and Health Science to become the Associate Dean Learning and Teaching. At the time, they were developing everything. So we went together through a 2-year intensive design of a Doctor of Medicine, Master of Public Health, Bachelor of Clinical Science, and I had the oversight of these kind of developments. Not being a medic myself, academic career was not necessarily obvious to me in that department. So I moved into my home Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and I'm now there over the last 2 years as the Associate Dean Quality and Standards, but also responsible for the development of the new Bachelor of Arts, which is happening as we speak for 2020. So I've been in and out professional roles, academic role most of my time, and now a senior leadership role. But all my research and all my passion about what I do, it's around the technology, online, and how we can keep engaging students. Can I get a quick feel about the different disciplines with us? We have health, yes, quite a few. We have humanities, great, thank you. It's good to have the humanities people as well. Engineering, science over there, law, someone from law, okay. Other disciplines, languages, education, of course, yes. Did I miss anything? Business, FE. Our university, if that will work, that's Macquarie, well, that's Macquarie University Library. Don't get me, that's the only impressive building at the moment. That's why marketing, they're always very keen when they give us templates to show. The rest of the university is under construction, totally under construction. Lots of space development. We are spending millions of Australian dollars. New humanities building, massive, the only of its kind in Australia to be developed for 2020 with exhibition spaces, new medical school, new law school, new engineering school. So if you come now, you kind of feel, you guys, you've been behind the, the times for 50 years, and now you just woke up. But it's creative. So that's our library, and it's one of its kind. It's actually a very good space for students to come in. It functions very much as a library, but also has a lot of informal spaces for students to go and interact and study from that point of view. If you know a bit about Sydney, you know the Opera House, yeah? So it's somewhere there by the water, and this is where Macquarie is located. So north of Sydney, a bit northwest of Sydney, and it was established in 1964 as a university. At the time, there was nothing around that. There was nothing around that building around that time. It was pretty much like land, and then the university was established primarily for people that they wanted to study, but they didn't have all the necessary qualifications, provide a bit of additional opportunities for them, which in a way kept our philosophy as a university around flexibility and around providing opportunities. And that's very much in the DNA of the university in that space. Our aim for today is to think critically, and that's what academics we do well. We think critically from a discipline's perspective. I would very much appreciate the feedback around things and how they can work in different areas. And if we can get away today with 1 or 2 ideas, practical ideas that we can put in action with the support of designers, I think we'll have a successful session. It's an hour and a half. It's not long in terms of, you throw all your theories or anything, but I would like you to interrupt me and I would like you to ask questions as we speak, because you are the key stakeholders in this kind of activity. All right? Quite clear? Okay. Can I ask you, do you all have a device of some sort, a mobile phone or a thing? And you are connected, hopefully? If I can ask you to go to Socrative.com, so just go in your browser and just key in Socrative.com. And if you do that, you should get into the web page, the browser says, and you should be able to see a student login and a teacher login. In a mobile, this should be coming almost like a menu on the top right somewhere. You have to go there. You click at this stage, you will behave as students. Click on the students, and then you should have give the room name. And the room name is MQ, for Macquarie, MQ 2019. Okay, I'm repeating it slowly. Socrative.com, 2 different logins, student and teacher. You go to the student. If things work, you should get enter room name, you put MQ 2019, and if this thing works, you should be waiting for instructions. Yes, I get verification, which is good. So you're waiting for instructions. But I just want to make sure everybody's at this point. Yes, guys? All right. Okay. If this thing works, you should all be able to start. So when I mention, can you see something? Question? You are waiting. You are waiting to load. Okay. Can anyone see a question? Okay. Guys, are we able to see the screen that I see? Can I duplicate it so I can show them the results? So Windows and P, and then the Windows and P and duplicate. Okay, perfect. All right. Apologies. By unit, I mean module. Yeah. In the Australian context, the unit is the module. So you are actually the people who are responsible for a module of things. If you are a tutor, it means that you are another teaching responsibility. You might be a casual academic or someone, or you might be professional staff. All right. Just to see a bit. That should not be true, though. Are you professional staff or academic staff? Okay. This is not so important. It was more important to me to understand the context, but I confirm that you are mostly academics and academic contracts, yeah? With professional staff, I would expect to see more people. They belong to a center of learning and teaching. They're in a professional contract, or librarians, or other people. But my feeling is that here will be more unit convener responsible for their own modules. Yes? That's fine. Okay. It's not an important question here anyway. Question for you, do you have at the moment any external students, distance students or externals in your own modules? If you have, click the true, if not, click false. Okay, so if you teach in any way students outside the campus, the main campus, as in a face-to-face kind of contact, so we can customize a bit what we're going to be talking about. Okay? So 2/3 at the moment, they just have only face-to-face students in the campus, and around 33% you say that you have external students. That's kind of okay? All right? Great. Now, ignore the Macquarie's definition, but think of it as a definition, like if the university is talking about external offering, what do you have in your mind? Which of the three possible scenarios are closer to what you believe is an external offering? You call it distance education. Okay. So distance education for you is a mode of offering that all classes and all learning activities are taken off campus. A mode of offering which indicates that class and learning activities are taken off campus, but supplementary on-campus sessions you might be planned. Or a mode of offering which indicates that assessment and some learning activities off campus, but classes actually are required. Just to see where you are. Okay, that's about right. In many places I ask these kind of questions. Most of the universities that we've seen in Australia, apart from the ones that they are predominantly distance education providers, they will have some sort of supplementary things that they will happen in the class. Can I check also with you guys, do you have a definition or?
The class might be virtual or face-to-face.
Okay, so they will have a supplement of that as well. Okay, in that case. Okay, thank you. Let me see, I think some of these questions, they've been a bit. So I have these questions for you. It's a statement, true or false, again to see whether in your minds you are clear when you expect students to be online and participating in learning activities. So do you have a clear design in your mind how to work with the online students? If that's the case, click through. If not, just tell me it's false. Okay. So we have 21 so far out of the 28. That's fine. Okay, I'll stop it here. I'll continue. That's an open question. It could be one word, two words, whatever you want. Don't make a whole sentence. It's a bit too much. But write down in your own words with what do you think is the biggest challenge that your distance learners, external learners, actually face. Engagement, that's spot on. That's the first one people they say. Access, very important. Connection, feedback, teamwork, literacies, management, let's see if there's anything else. Okay, so far half of the statements are about access and connectivity. Yeah, and that's something that is an issue. It's important when we talk about engagement and online, because a few of the things that they might show today here, you might think on the back of your mind, yes, but there's no way that our students will be able to load and do that in our own campuses or in our own infrastructure. And that is a big challenge when it comes to online design. What actually is, there is the state of the art, and there's the state of the actual. We are more of the state of the actual when it comes to real life situation. It's good to have the state of the art. I'm going to show you a couple of examples that I was sharing with some colleagues. But in your mind, I want you to critique a lot of the things I'm going to tell you, but there might be alternatives, and that's why I'm here today, to discuss what is the next best thing we can do to achieve the outcome. So I will agree a lot of it. In some places where I play, connectivity is not an issue. Primarily, they will say that they don't. Australia has a connectivity issue. When we talk about fully distance learners, that they come outside the metropolitan areas, 80% of Australia land is desert and remote, and some of our students, they won't have access, stable and consistent access. I was told that even students traveling to campus, listening to a podcast at Macquarie, they don't have stable access. So that we need to take this into account. So that's actually quite useful. Now, that's a quick statement, just to get a feeling about your own units, your own modules, and how much do you feel that your online offerings, your online modules, you feel that they are at least easy to navigate, at least they are structured good enough. And the reason I'm asking is we can tailor this session to be very much around, how it should look like and an online offering. And my feeling is that a lot of the debates have moved apart. A lot of the academics already have the basics, and it's more important to customize it. What do you think will be the answer? Quite straightforward navigation, or there will be quite a few not very comfortable? I'll wait a bit until 20 out of 29, and then I'll go. What's that?
Usually there's a lack of intuition when it comes to navigation.
Is the navigation, yes, for that. Okay, well, we have a good amount of confident agreement here that people, they say it's good. And navigation is one of the very important principles after access when it comes to get a feeling about an online offering or an external offering, which is great. Thank you. Okay, see if I have. I will stop here with this because the time, it is a bigger quiz. What I used is one of the freely available polling systems. It's called Socrative.com. Free for every academic and every student to use within a certain parameter of how many questions you can have. But we are using it as an important thing, both with our face-to-face and our distance learners, when we start our classes. Just to get to if it is brand new course or brand new cohort arriving, like you guys, you're about to embark, you're going to have a new team arriving, maybe 100, 150 new students, you may want to quickly get some information about their background, about their challenges, and so on. So one thing we can do to start any design in a good way is to get information about who are going to be the students you're going to be working with. And this kind of polling activities are very straightforward. I think maybe your learning management system, Sakai, has a quiz aspect to it, but this kind of Socrative or poll everywhere, and there's a number of them, they're slightly more user-friendly because you can use them quickly from a mobile phone, you can play with them, and you can create your own data, you can play with the data, and you can enhance it. So I highly recommend it as kind of a starting thing for an activity. And in professional development, normally we run it to get an understanding about to whom we're talking and how much detail we need to give, so we cannot bore you to death. Okay. An important thing, maybe I need to click the slideshow from current slide. And that's something I always ask to confirm with my audience. in education, formal education, like a university, compare with informal things that you might be doing. You know, you might have your own blogs, you might keep your own other like pages, but informal education, we need to understand that it is a very much our responsibility to design for the learning experience that will take place. And that's a total distinction to the movement of open education, which I highly appreciate and I highly respect, but claims that our responsibility is very much to design the opportunities and to design resources and then make them available, and then students, they will find a way, they will navigate and they will start learning. But today what I'm going to be presenting is for formal education, where you have the responsibility, the duty of care to your students to design an approach where they will engage with. So I'm not underestimating either the student importance, that they have to have a play, or the fact that there are 1,000 additional resources somewhere that the students they can do, like, you know, Coursera and kind of MOOCs and all these kind of things. But I'm interested to see how you are thinking that students should be learning. Make sense? So I always clarify this, so you will see what learning design is important. So it's important to have this distinction, and anytime people talking at you or with you about online learning, before they go crazy with these beautiful ideas, tell them, are you suggesting this for formal education that has time limits, it has expectations, assessments, validation? In health, you will have credentials and a million other things. Or are you talking about me providing some resources for other people to play? Two different things. Not necessarily antagonistic. You can still use one for the other, but here you have a possibility to make it work. You cannot just drop it there. Okay? These are the important elements that, at least in our university, we take into account when we are talking about distance or online design of activities. And it's a set of questions that we always throw with our academics, and we try to work with them. One is big questions about curriculum. From the learners, motivation, the outcomes, the capabilities, competencies, whatever you have to develop. So we bring this on the front of whatever you do. So content will come a bit later. So the very first thing is the learners, the outcomes that all of you will have a number of them. In health, engineering, other areas, you will have additional outcomes that will be given to you from the government in the form of statements and capabilities. In the humanities, you might have additional things that they come from the particular discipline that they want to establish. Like in philosophy, you might want to have particular competencies in critical thinking, in inductive reasoning, just name it. All of these things, we have them on the front. Then is what is the learning and teaching approach. Some people, they call it pedagogy, theory, just choose it, but at the end of the day, it's your learning and teaching approach. What approach will you take? In what way your content will be provided? What assessments you will have, and so on. So far, nothing around technology, yeah? Not necessarily around technology. Then we'll go about the delivery mode. And we talk about where, this is a big question for us, where the majority of the learning and teaching and development will take place. Just to get the right feeling whether what activities or things you're going to be designing are primarily for the distance, or you are believing more in a blended, or you just want it to be a design agnostic of the delivery, that it could potentially work and repurposed in any mode for any learner. And that's the current mandate that my university given us. So our university says that when you design for online, you design inclusively. You design for everyone. So have the best in the online space, and then use the resources also for the face-to-face. But if someone wants to enroll to your university and become a distance learner through the way, because the situation changes, you should be able to accommodate them. So don't lose them to another institution or to an online provider because you cannot do it. So that's where we are moving towards, and that's a big question for the delivery. And then we have all the technologies, what is available, and this idea of affordances. Are you familiar at all with this idea? Okay. I'll use an example. That's why I kept my apple and I didn't bite it over the lunch. So it's a concept that pretty much, I'm trying to put it in very kind of plain words, even for me to understand it correctly. If I ask you, what is this? Automatically yourself you'll be able to recognize, yeah? What is it? It's an apple. And what do you think an apple is for? That would be one. Anyone has a different view? Yeah, correct. Anything else? To aim at and throw. So that's one thing that we all have a common vocabulary or a common understanding, but when it comes to put it in use, depending on the circumstances. If you are hungry, automatically you're going to see something you're going to eat. If you are upset, you'll see something you're aiming at. If you are creative, you will see a decorative item. That's, in a nutshell, what affordances says, that you will always, and that's not only for technology, but technology borrow it. You are going to identify something that you are familiar with or not familiar with, and you will associate it with a particular function. And as long as you understand what the function is, you are able to achieve that. And in the spirit of technology, the affordances theory will say that you will know, everybody knows what a discussion forum is, roughly. Everybody nowadays knows what a mobile phone is. But if I ask you to identify for the particular course you are teaching, what should be the use of this particular tool for the context in which you are teaching, we might end up with 29 different ways. So keep in mind that this kind of affordances theory, well, not the theory, but the word affordances, when you go there. And that will make you realize that sometimes examples that you've seen out there and you don't agree, and you say it will never work, that's fine, but this is how they thought should be used. But try to find the best use of that particular artifact or technology. Not only for the technological, but I would say for everything that we do. So we put that there. We don't try to talk about the theory so much, but it's the principles around it. And then that's something I want to check with you again. We always advise them, when we talk about the academics, which technologies are immediately available to you, almost like a toolkit that you know you have at your disposal, and which technologies you would like to see available, but perhaps they are not, and they may need to invest additional time and resource to make them happen. So, am I right that there is an institutional set of technologies that everybody is using, mostly are around an LMS, learning management system, but you might be able to bring your own tools, like you can use something that you believe is worthwhile? Yes? Go on.
For instance, like the languages with outside external tools that you can use in your module
Yes.
that's been developed by somebody else.
Yes.
You can in your
Yes. Yeah. Or it might be that I don't like the discussion forum of Sakai, but I do like the Facebook commenting tool. Am I allowed to say that I will run my discussion element of my course on Facebook? Or there is a policy that forbids social media, for example, to be used as part of formal education. These are all questions that I'm asking because our university, for example, has a social policy media thing that says anything that happens outside the server of the university, including the data that we present there, it's at the risk of the unit convener. And they are subject to, and in health, is forbidden, full stop. You're not allowed to have a conversation anywhere that you cannot keep it for 50 years, and that's a policy across the university. In languages, we have our own language labs, and most of the times we get access to that software so we can control it. I'm not advocating one or another, but these are all important questions to you, especially if there is no protocol around it. Things that you need to consider before you take a tool, and I had myself experience of using my own YouTube channel, private YouTube channel, to create announcements, which then being whatever happened in YouTube in a private thing, it was messed up, and then inappropriate content was projected. Yeah. And it could be, I'm not saying necessarily this inappropriate content you all imagine, but it could be like there was a movie clip or advertisements that I don't want to put an advertisement, but YouTube threw advertisements at the beginning of my videos. It was a huge, huge problem. I had to go back to the team and say, can I recreate all my announcements? So, important thing about the elements is to identify what type of technology you will be using, and then understand the affordances. And my advice will be try always to be in proximity with what the university has control of. For formal education, that it has to be replicated and used and so on. Because without losing the motivation of trying out things like Socrative and Paul everywhere and this kind of stuff. But a lot of the things, when it comes to assessment, ensure that things are happening within a controlled environment. It's absolutely important. So far, all right? Few ideas? Not rocket science, or everybody's doing it, it's just a number of questions that we've been developing. That's a slide, you have it printed, is more about the affordances. But I will give you an example how affordances work. If we look at the pre-last, pre-second, and you just say that I want to design for an online technology opportunity of authentic knowledge and an authentic environment for my students, really real life examples. And I'm going to be using technology in the form of audio, video, simulation to create this thing. What I really, really want as part of the function is visualization, recall, knowledge, transferability. Yep, you see the continuum. This allows you, when you talk, do we have any of our media designers with us, or they left? I think they left. But if I was, as an academic, to talk to a media designer, to explain to them how to develop my media production, and I know that outside what I want from that video is a very good visualization, I want a very good artifacts and so on, that provides them the opportunity to say and to estimate for you exactly how much and how long it will take for these things to happen. If you just go and tell them, I want an introductory video, you will end up with potentially whatever they believe is this introductory video. So the affordance theory or principle will allow you to justify to them what exactly you are looking out of this video. Make sense? Okay. Here's an example. And let's see if I will connect automatically. And here's the story. Head of Department of Modern History and Politics. New arrival to the university. In year one, he goes into his course. The course was supposed to be for 3 different cohorts, fully face-to-face students studying at Macquarie, roughly 100, 120 of them. A small proportion of no more than 15, 16 studying at Macquarie in what we call an external offering, which requires though face-to-face exams and face-to-face aspects, but they do a lot of the participation and content online, and a fully online distance cohort that they will take this through our open university system. And his view was, I want one design that brings all these 3 cohorts together, and they participate equally in the number of the interactivities. What can I do? So the very first thing to tell him is that it's not a matter of what you can do. It's not a straightforward answer. It's a discussion of us to go through a design process. So we call him at the team, and we discuss different possibilities, including all these questions: who are your learners, what you want to achieve, and so on. And we ended up with, if you want, like a prototype design that was full on with media, animations, difficult guides, everything. We estimated that to produce this thing for him, it will be roughly 4 to 5 months. And in order to do that, we will need to occupy the time of at least 4 people within the university, including our media designers, our graphic designers, and so on. When I told him that, he kind of said, all right, I want to prototype this and then take it on across the whole of the department. that will be another 17, 18 different subjects or courses. So we really want to get it properly, and I want to estimate how much does it take to do this activity. We ended up with this design, and I'm going to show you how it looks like in real life. Okay, so his production, is it and P and duplicate. Yes, can you see it now? All right. So it's called Anzacs Australians at War. And that's how it looked like. An introduction with a little introductory video, introduces the information, an introductory quiz, very similar to this kind of that I ran, that tries to identify the background of the students, including technology questions, where they're accessing from, and so on. So he was very aware that he was developing a heavy media output. A little space there called the introductions, that it was for everybody to introduce themselves, and that was an opportunity to bring the face-to-face students with the distance learners in the same space, so create a bit of a community space. Okay? Very clear at the beginning the assessments and what exactly will be the case. He kept it very, very simple. Quizzes, because they were very much like self-automated and easy to mark if you do a good work. He introduced the idea of a learning portfolio, which allowed students to mix and match different aspects of the course, and then study them, and then produce outcomes, reflections, reports, little syntheses, little articles, reviews, whatever they wanted. But he created a synthesis. He's one of the best examples of portfolio we've seen. And then they had what was a major project, that it was an analysis of a military history document that he had to produce. So that's how he kept it, and it was activities that we were confident that all three cohorts they could easily accommodate. So he sacrificed a final exam that used to run with a major project in a learning portfolio, just to be able to accommodate what these particular people were doing. And then a typical, so for us, module is a subset within a unit. So unit is equal to module, and module for us is 1 week or one topic within your modules. Okay, just to see what you see here. So module 1 is just 1 week of a particular design. So it was heavy on media, but it was actually quite good. So he had introductions. He allowed students, he introduced on the right a complete button, which allows him every week to see how many students have been engaged. Well, engaged is a big question. At least they accessed that thing, which is two different things. But at least you get a bit of the analytics behind to see, okay, at least they are trying to access this particular thing, and so on. Video activities, then the number of quizzes, and then an application. And always finishing with a reflection. So there was always a completing thing, and reflection is one of the most powerful things we can do for an online education. It can take different forms, but really, really works well from that. And try to replicate that on a number of activities. Okay? You will see it's heavy on media and it's controlled. It's fully a controlled design, which means anything is available in a sequence. So a student cannot really progress and jump in week 3 to see something unless they have completed the knowledge. So that's one of the kind of sequential learning model that we have in the university, where you work and you release content, information, and activities on the basis of performance on other activities. And if they are not performing, for example, satisfactory to a quiz, then there is a link to tell them here is additional information for you because you haven't achieved a 60% or a 50%. So it goes around this idea of adaptation, adaptive learning. Here's your video, that's your information, that's your reading, that's a test point. If you achieve it to a satisfactory level, you can continue. If you do not achieve it to a satisfactory level, you have to go and a new resource perhaps might open. It's very powerful and works really well as long as you have a good sequence in your mind and you don't really have students that, you know, they might are busy so much. There are problems with the model. The problem of the model is that students, they might want to move on a different pace than that particular lecturer has designed for. They will find this very, very, very restricted. So the other extreme model I'm going to show you is a total open one that does not even have modules, just has topics, and the students, they can mix and match resources from whenever they want, as long as they complete the assignments in the right time, and they can pass. Two extreme designs, both acceptable, but it's down to you to see what you want to achieve. In his point, he believed that having gaps in understanding and not trying to get information earlier than others is actually create more confusion than you know, going through a sequence of the design. Extremely controlled. Okay, any questions so far? If you do a test on that, you'll classify it high-end, high-risk, high-cost. That will be for us. The academic, if I calculate the amount of video production we had over there, it will come over a couple of hours. And 2 hours or 3 hours of proper media production costs to a university a lot of time and yourselves if you design scripts and so on. So before we are 100% sure that a clip is better than this, we had to go through a good discussion with the academic. So why not reading an article on indigenous warfare is not good enough, and they have necessarily to have a 4 minutes and 35 on that particular topic. And that was a thinking that he had to do and accept it. And his view was that these particular students, he just wanted them to go through a full multimedia experience. And he believed that the readings, they will be the supplementary activity. Being in front, but he created high-end products. I'll just play quickly a video to show you exactly how it looks like. Yes, please go on.
I just wanted to ask, why do you also classify this as high risk?
High risk, it was pretty much about accessibility and connectivity.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So we told him that if the cohort of the distance learners, they will have problem with accessibility, they will have total problem with this. There's no gap for them to get information. It's not just one ad hoc thing. You design the whole thing as multimedia. So if this cohort arrives and you have a problem, it's a high risk. And he took on the responsibility. And he says, yes, I appreciate. The alternative, of course, is the transcript of the videos, but it's not the same thing. High cost, I can give you an example of the high cost. Okay, let's see where it is. Just to see the media production that we ended up doing with him. He talks about broadcast, music in these teaching materials. Yeah? Authorization. That's introduction to unit, yeah? Learning outcomes.
centenary of the Gallipoli campaign, but the centenary of the birth of the Anzac legend. This unit will examine the impact of armed conflict on Australian national life.
So, we flew the academic and 3 designers to Turkey to create a series of things, which was lovely. Maybe he authorized that. I'm just starting with that. And then after the production took place, we realized that this high production is only relevant to a unit called Anzacs at War, and only for that particular unit. So any kind of change that potentially take place, change of the name, change of the sequence, change of the activities, all this content will be wiped off. Because he refers to things that are relevant or the design at the current time. So back to the link of this course that we're doing today together about effective design. These things, they might be wonderful and you might be tempted to do it, but sometimes low-tech solutions that you can actually do and control within your own environment are better than trying to go with extremely high-tech and complicated. They look super wow, and the students maybe they engage. But that's kind of one of the things. We have millions of other introductory videos that we use for all our students that they've been kind of in-house support. In contrary, the big thing about this production was that it will be exposed to a huge amount of students outside our university through the Open University Australia. And it has to be branded and high-end product because potentially will attract students into the university. So there's always this kind of thing. There's a marketing opportunity, and we can justify the cost and the time of doing it. But it was hungry in terms of resources. Going back to that. Current slide, we go there. That's an example from what we call in our university. Do you use the term flipping, these things? Are you, yeah? It's still a terminology that we try to grasp our way around. But for us, a flipped classroom is where a face-to-face component of a class is replaced by an online learning experience, either prior, during, or after the session. So this is a Medi 103. It's a health clinical science professional practice unit, introduced almost as a need to a large cohort. So we started a very elite boutique, 60 students, Bachelor of Clinical Science, but this thing grew over the 2 years to become an 180 cohort thing. And all the nice activities that they were designed for collaboration, interactivity, and the lecturer was aware of, they had to be somehow supplemented by something else. So it came as a result, and then everything will go online. All the information will go there. It looks a bit like that. And there is little videos, vignette, not a lot. This is not high-end production, quite substantial, but not high-end production. No more than 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes introduction of the lecturer, pretty much to give the key points outside the readings. But then, I don't know if we can see it, in the tutorial preparation, we had very clear expectations using active verbs. Watch, read, assess. Like tick, 1, 2, 3. Know what I'm doing here, what is in the design. Welcome, that's me, that's what I have. These are the sequence of the events you have to see. In real life, looks a bit like that. I will replicate it again. Control P and duplicate. Okay, let's go. I'll give you the example of the professional practice. So that's a design, if you can see it over there, for a flipped model. Still a video, but nothing compared with the video we just witnessed. Same purpose, an introduction and so on.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sarah Watt, Senior Advanced Professional Practitioner, Customer Person.
She's speaking a bit too fast.
My background is in recruitment and research. My research focuses on clinical communication and medicine, particularly presentation. The unit on professional practitioners is the core knowledge and skills that will enable you to effectively work in a variety of environments, as well as in further health professional education, such as medicine physics.
Rather static, a bit fast to my taste, but nonetheless. But it is implemented in a way that is aesthetically pleasant for our students. They know who the person is, the space, then they have all the teaching team that will be supporting them over there. So all the big anxiety, who I'm talking to, who are my people, are clear from the outset. That's what they face. And that's a very important thing in the online engagement. And then, assessments, as you can expect. And then they will have in the different weeks. So in the different weeks, they might have a little video. And then they have what they call tutorial preparation, watch, try, read, complete, share. Very clear things that they have to do and complete in a particular sequence, and a number of activities. So the students, the 180 students, they will not meet physically as a cohort in a lecture theater, because we don't have the space to do that, but they will flip the lecture into the online space and turn the tutorials as the key thing. So this is where the majority of the activity takes place. But to come to a tutorial, you need to have done this type of preparatory activities. That's the ticket for you to be able to get your attendance thing for the tutorial. So that's how the flipping activity works. Within that, we have some more bespoke designs, and I will share with you one, if I have it here. Reflection. Okay, see if this thing is going to work. Give it a second to load. So, in the past, the 60 students, they used to get an experience into the hospital. So they will go there, and they will visit the hospital, and they will do an observation of a hospital room and how does it work, and what are some of the problems they might face. With 180 students, the hospital refused to take them on, giving them these 15, 20 minutes they need. They came to us, and they said, is there a way we can work with you to design the best alternative? And this is where you are very important stakeholders. What you want to achieve, I want to be able, my students, to get an as near as possible experience of what a hospital room looks like. And I want them to be able to observe. So observation was a requirement, visibility, visualization was a requirement, accessibility was a requirement. A number of ideas that might be coming backwards and forwards, or how about we go and we film a thing and we interview patients and we do a number of things. We ended up with a quite short but okay activity, which is pretty much a static photography of a room in a hospital set up in an emergency situation, and then the ability of students to tick within that space, moving around. Okay, so a bit of animation took place there. They can see. But they could now witness all the problems that they exist in the room. For example, there's a medical record dropped there, and say there's hot drinks, there is some blood coming out for a syringe. This was a scenario that was given by the academic to the designer. The designer discussed a bit how important is the activity, and then they have to make a judgment, giving this kind of affordances theory, what is the best way to represent it. And they ended up with this. It cost them something around 4 to 5 hours of collaboration to agree, and it was not extremely high-end, but looks quite well. And it was just uploaded over there. We've done lots of them in archaeology, where we cannot afford to send students over to do observations and dig, like really virtual animations of so on. And they work really well. So you have a media team, you have a media production. Videos is one way of thinking, but very simple animations of real things, photography and things, then actually enhance a lot the experience. We've done it in music. We had a video where music is playing and then the wrong symbols appear and the students they have to pick them up and mix and match them. Just name it. It can be very, in languages, endless activities where they can actually correct the dialogue, they can do things. They don't cost a lot of time and they are not extremely high-end productions. And normally with a relatively straightforward tool, you should be able to produce it with a support. Your job is to come with a clear mandate, a clear expectation, almost like the storytelling to them. I would like my students to be transported in France, and they were able to listen to an authentic dialogue. And I would like them to be able to pause it and then correct this. And then the designer should be able to tell you what it is, how much of your time they need, and what is needed. Is that a way of working? That's how we should be doing things in that kind of space, and that's where you are very important. Questions? Okay, so far? Public health, very similar. We've done a number of activities with them. If that works. That's a fully online example of design. In this case, our students, they will never ever come face to face at any point. Most of the times they will be also from another country. They will just opt to take, they will be international students. In that case, we add additional socialization activities. So they will always start here, for example, is a learning activity where they need to introduce themselves. It can be very monotonous online, introducing yourself. Hi, my name is Panos, I come from Greece, blah, blah, blah. Hi, my name is Elsa, I come from, and you read it. So we give them stimuli, prompts. So in that case, we say, here are 2 videos relevant to the topic you are studying. In that case, it was education, and ICT in education. And we say they represent 2 different opinions about technology in education. Watch the video. So in that way, they also test early on their technology. If they come back to say, I cannot even watch a YouTube video, then we have a problem. You know, I've designed something really heavy here. Watch the video and tell me why you agree or you disagree with this video. And do that by a way of introduction. In health, you might want to tell them, take a copy of the newspaper, the latest, this morning's newspaper that has something about health, you know, new regulation to pass. Have you seen that? Give me your comment, and as you do it, introduce yourselves. In languages, you might want to say, write down the 5 more interesting words that you know in the language you're about to study. Just to play a bit with socialization is an important aspect of the fully online thing, and cannot be just reduced to introduce yourself. Yeah, it's getting very, very dull and boring to pretend that we're doing what we're doing here. They don't have face, they don't have anything. You may want to put social media in the game if you prefer, you know, create a profile and share it with us. You can be creative, but little things in a discussion forum that lights it up, gives a bit of is actually quite well. There are different models for online design from your point of view. So there are activities that they are about, for example, reading. Guided readings, discovery readings, web tours, audio dramas, and podcasts are some of them. A guided reading activity will be as simple as that, which is get paper X, highlight the most interesting quote on this paper and the most puzzling quote in this paper that you have no clue what they're talking about. and throw it into the discussion forum. Within 15, 20 minutes, half an hour a day, depending how much you allow them to do it in the asynchronous space, you will end up with a number of interesting questions. Discovery readings is the other way. Discovery readings, there will be, the topic of today is effective online pedagogies. Bring the most up-to-date reading that you have found in the library, in the online system, that talks about it. And in that way, they help you also build a bit your reading lists. Yeah? Because they might try and find something that was yesterday, and they will bother to go to the library and check. So instead of just telling them, read this, and this, and take a quiz, you just tell them, actually read this and show me that you read it by putting a couple of quotes over there. And depending on the tools, you might want to tell them to do it. You might want to tell them to record it and just speak about it. You can be very creative in that space. That goes down to this kind of audio dramas. Peer collaboration, we have collaborative note-taking. It's a very important thing for us. So we do have a tool which allows our students to open, well, it's very much like a wiki tool in our Moodle, where the students, they need to take a reading or an audio, and collectively they write down a number of notes. They annotate notes with prompt questions. And then you end up with a skeleton of questions and interesting information that they can share and they can learn from each other. And in the assessment, you can have a number of interesting things. In the reflection space, we introduced a lot, we play a lot with self-check quizzes. They're almost like our, I think it's the main activity that our academics are using. Self-check quizzes are not necessarily content related always, but they do have questions about which difficulties did you face in this particular week. What are some points that are still unclear? So it's a self-check, and you get feedback to know, okay, 80% of you in week 1, you still do not know the term affordances. And then this term is going to be introduced in a topic to you. I need to act. You take the self-quiz, you look at it, and then you react by having an announcement or a little video to articulate to them. Make sense? How these things work. So there's questions around reflection. There are things about reading that are very important. We also try to do as much as we can for our distance learners, or their things on the aspect of practicum, doing things. So we are using a lot of concept mapping in our thing. So an alternative. You can do reading, quiz, reading, note-taking, or reading and concept mapping. All the three, they will engage with an ability for them to read academically, but they will develop a different skill on the way. So the concept mapping will be read this and identify 4 terms or definitions that they are in the document, and then write, like, connect them with other relevant concepts. So a student might go and says, health is equality, is service, is money, is government. They might go that route. Another person will associate in a different way. But it will give them an opportunity. Then if you serve them all together, you will actually see this kind of concept maps. And you can do them with totally freely available tools that they exist. So concept maps, they do exist very much. Wikis, we are using a lot of wikis. Yeah, we're all familiar with the term. Yeah. So the difference between discussion, blog, and wiki. A discussion is very much driven by the peer collaboration and the threaded interaction. The blog is centered around a single author. Yeah? So normally in the blog, there's a big mistake to say, go to the blog and talk to each other. No, it's not working. The blog has a totally different function. The blog is share your opinion and expect comments, but you cannot expect threads in a blog. In a wiki, you cannot say discuss in a wiki. In the wiki, you co-author, you write something, and you can track exactly what people have done. So all of these three tools, they can work together, but you have to get the affordance right, what is for. So some of our mistakes will be people doing individual blogs, but they don't activate the comment, and then the blog is just a dead post somewhere on the space, right? And again, your advisors, your learning designers, they should be able to talk to you about these kind of things. We introduced a framework called the 3E, which I highly recommend to you, and I mentioned it also to a number of other people in this university. It stands for 3 simple terms: enhance, extend, empower. Enhance means something that you introduce and you try to build on it. Extend is the next step, and empower is where eventually the students, they take ownership of it. For example, if you want to make your teaching more interactive, at the very, very basic level, at the enhanced level, you might use a copyrighted or your own development of online video and multimedia clips to enhance the understanding of a point. So myself, spending 5 minutes explaining what is the notion of media design. If I want to do something slightly more advanced, I might bring a guest speaker into a discussion forum. I might do a virtual connection with an expert from overseas. You know, you all have networks. Why you don't bring someone from the other part of the world to give a bit of a push to the team? They can come and they can watch and they can listen. In the Empower, you might actually have your students creating this video annotation or the theory to explain it to other students. So you are still making the teaching more interactive, but you are doing it progressively. One is a bit passive. The final one is extremely active. You decide at what point you're going to do it. Yeah? Enhance, extend, empower. I use it in my own design when I do my own teaching, just to see whether all my activities are just stuck at the enhanced level. There's nothing there for the students to do. They're always to absorb. It's my design, and they just do things, as opposed to hopefully move them to the ability to do something with the activities and so on. Now, I would like you maybe, if you have a pen and paper, and you do have pen and paper, take a couple of minutes, write down one very simple activity that you do, and then try to see how this activity could become slightly more student-focused. So how it can move from an enhanced to an empower. It could be anything. It could be, I'm doing a video introduction. What other things you can do with video that they will make it slightly more interactive for your students? Could be anything. Just take a few minutes. Okay, and I'll bring back the 3 just as a thing to have in your mind. Our online virtual participants, you can do the same as well. Yeah? Just use pen and paper and write down a couple of activities. Don't worry about the complete. It could be anything, yeah? A very, very simple thing, like a discussion forum or something. Anyone is willing to share with us a couple of their thinking? Yes, go on. Yeah, that's fine. That's great. Simple is good.
Ask students to read an article. They
Yes.
ask to the extent you can ask them to annotate and make notes.
Yes.
Then we use customized canvas. They can collaborate, share their notes and annotations
Mhm.
with each other and reply on each other's questions on the project.
Perfect. It sounds simple, but you tackle a number of content and skills development. And that's the good thing about technology, that it can help the students master a different type of skills in that space. By getting them, obviously, to do a basic reading, they do develop a bit of their literacy and their understanding. But by adding the complexity of collaboration, they test their ability to negotiate and so on, note-taking, all within just a simple enhancement. The problem is, in a design, when you jump directly into the third, the enhance, without having tested whether they're actually very much capable of taking even notes. So what I strongly advocate all over now my 17 years in my career is that super wow, beautiful, complicated activities are good, but they have the right time to come into the curriculum. Throwing students difficult technologies with difficult activities, it's not really a way ahead for design. Scaffolding though, and that's why I like the three, scaffolding the process that they develop their ability to do that before they are able to go then and critique and annotate and make notes is a way of doing it. And you might be able to do it across your module, or you might say my module actually is at the right level, it's a third-year module. Can I count that other colleagues of mine, they've done other type of activities that they help the students? And that's where collaborative design is important that we really advocate. Thank you. One more, yeah, go on.
Just a quick comment. Can you use this 3D framework also as
on a program level to say in our first year we're doing only enhancement, in our second year in this module we're doing,
Yep.
and then the third year you can extend. So
Yes.
it's actually also a good tool for 3 modules that follow on each other
Yes.
or
Yes.
courses.
You can do that, but then I had questions to say there will be a difference though by doing a 3E for an undergraduate to a postgraduate. Because at the postgraduate level, maybe your first E will be extension or empowerment, and you have to push it to the next level. Because as someone who comes to study an MBA, they would like to go directly into the group and the case study as opposed to be able to do it. So I've seen it both across the program, but also across the module, that you had little activities that they built. Make sense? A bit? Great. One more example that someone is willing to share with us. Go on.
Taking 6 minutes, whereby you just make a presentation of 2 minutes.
Yes?
For example, introduction of how to introduce SIs to students, and
Yes.
then you are the one saying it.
Yes.
It's a clip of 2 minutes,
Mhm.
and the second, the extent is where they come in to simulate. One student comes and put it as a simulation,
Yes.
and the empowerment, they come up with their own
Design.
design.
Yes, absolutely.
So all is 6 minutes.
That's almost, yeah, you can actually try it all in a sequence, one after the
Yes.
other, which is great. Yeah.
Yes.
Presentation actually works really well in that space, and that's where we're failing, especially in the online space. Students that they've never been able to present in a face-to-face situation, and suddenly we just ask them to go and create a video of themselves doing something is daunting for a lot of them. Scaffolding it and say, I will observe a 2-minute presentation of how should look like. That's one activity, and make a few comments. Then try it out maybe with a pair of you, but that's in a very safe environment, and then come and do it in the real accessible, especially if you attach assessment to that, because the assessment will scare them. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that. I'm just conscious a bit about the time. Time is passing so fast. We're already 4 o'clock, almost. 3:45. 10 to, okay. And we are only until 4, isn't it? That's where we are. But trying to bring us all to the space until the 3 before I put one more activity to us. One thing that we need to remember is that the departure point, the starting point, is always your learning outcomes and the student's needs, which is typical across anything. There's nothing different in the online space. The second principle you need to think in your mind is that take it on as a more kind of holistic design task. So don't just come back asking to do one activity off the hook, just like randomly do something to improve. Think of it in a bit of a longer term, and how does it play across the whole of the module, and if possible across the whole of the course in which you teach. Because you're investing a lot of time in something like a media production we've seen earlier, just to improve temporarily your unit or your module for a bit of time, when bigger changes are happening, is not the most productive time. So always try to talk to colleagues about your ideas and your designs, and ask them, perhaps they've done something similar, or perhaps they will tell you that this is too advanced and no one else has prepared them for that. So introducing the 3E is a very important aspect of collaboration in that kind of space. Now, I gave you, can I just borrow it for a second? And this is just a very quick way that we do things at my university. We do have what we call a flipped lesson plan template. So we do work with templates. It's only one of many that you might be able to find in the space, but you should be able to get them also in the online, in the folder that I shared with you. But this is a typical way in which we work with our good designers and our online learning team. We are, and we, I mean the academics, we normally put the effort in advance to think on paper about what is the things we want to achieve, what type of objectives and what type of activity we have in mind. We outline it in very plain ways, like simple ways. You don't need to use any jargon or anything, but you might want to say, I want my students to get familiarity with readings before they come to class. And then we pass this to our designers, who will advise, and they will say, there's an opportunity for you to do a quiz, there's an opportunity for you to do a discussion, there's this and this and this. So we engage in this kind of dialogue, but we do have something to start. I don't know if that's the way that you guys are working or you are proposing, but for us that's an important starting point, negotiated document. Because in one-off conversation that nothing is kind of, things are changed. They might have misunderstood what you want to do. They might come with something that looks totally different, and that's waste of both times. So having a document, I'm not saying this document, but having something, at least in one A4 mandate of the things you want to achieve, and you put a bit of this effort to think before they throw at you 1 million solutions, because you should be able to say, hold on, I just told you my students, they will have no connectivity, almost no connectivity. And you throw to me this beautiful design that takes 5 minutes to load in the university. How on earth I'm going to do it? Hit me with what is realistic. And you end up with this kind of conversations. So use these templates, or think together what sort of template it's going to be, but it's actually a very important part. When it comes to facilitation, and that will be a very quick thing, I'm going to tell you, and I have actually shared with you my article. My own PhD was about facilitation and interactivity, and I shared with you one piece of writing over there. There are many, many models. I don't know if you are familiar with the 5 stages. It's perhaps one of the most referenced. Yeah? It's for fully online facilitation, this model. But pretty much the model says your job in the online space is to go there and be able to make sure that students, they have access, they know how to socialize, you have provided enough opportunities to share information, and then you have provided at least 1 or 2 activities where some sort of construction and development takes place. It's simplistic in many ways, but actually is accurate, because this is what happens exactly in a face-to-face situation. You come to the class and you make sure that there's access there's a door, there's electricity, everything works. Most of us, we try to socialize a bit. You know, none of you, hopefully you are with the back to the students. You know, you are smiling, you are doing a couple of things. Now, online socialization could be anything from a welcoming 30-second smiley face saying, welcome students, I know I'm not with you, but I'm with you in spirit and we'll make ourselves, all the way to flying over to Turkey with a camera crew and welcoming them in the real face. All of them are elements of socialization, or just a written thing that you could do, but don't ignore it. And doing a bit of this kind of self-check, opportunities for them to tell you back immediately if they feel uncomfortable, if they don't have access, if there is problem with understanding navigation, how to do it. And then the information exchange is where the activities about how many PDFs you're going to throw, how many videos, what information you need. And my advice is keep it realistic, keeping in mind how many hours do you expect them to do. I have academics that they throw 50 attachments. And I said, what do you expect them to do with 50 attachments? Minimum an hour and a half to read. That's pretty much 70 hours out of the 100 hours that they're supposed to be doing. Something is wrong here. Okay, what can I do? Why don't you group them to essential and recommend it? And then in the essentials, why do you don't have the ones that you must read and you'll be tested? And you go down in that kind of discussion. So that's what this model gives you. You can use it. My advice is to use it almost as a checkpoint. So you look in your design and you said, yeah, there's enough there about access. You know, I gave them some information where to find things. I have something in the socialization space, enough information, and I do have at least 3-4 activities that they do something. It's not just a web page that they absorb. And this could be anything, from creating a discussion to a podcast, just name it. Okay? It is, if you go 5 stages, I think thousands of applications will come out. Another framework that exists, Garrison and Anderson, learning community, it's more about community development. The difference between this and this is very much pragmatic and linear, and it is what we do in education. I have no doubt that this is what we do. This one is a bit more romantic. What it says is that through a combination of pretty much social and cognitive and teaching, we all together create an experience of learning and so on. Assumes that the learners, they will take ownership of the process, they will step in and help each other, and they will do things. It's a different type of design. I'm not saying one is better than other, but to achieve something like that, you will need to have students that they will be a bit familiar with the online space. It might take a bit of time to develop this kind of ability to help each other and communicate. So I always advocate a more scaffolded approach. Give them the essentials so they know they are safe. Flag them that you are there with them by as simple as having your contact details, your photograph, and a forum of some sort they can ask questions. And then, as you develop your ability to design online and your students' experience of the online space, you may want to throw some more complicated activities in the educational experience, which is important. That's my framework, even more complicated. Yeah? Totally romantic. My view of online education is that the center of this is always a significant learning opportunity. So what I advocate in my learning is you do all the designs the way you want them, but then the students, they will come and they will grab the most random quote and the most random reading that you don't even want them to engage with. And what are you going to do? But this is what will keep them going. Oh, we just, we know all of these things. We don't want to. But I never thought about this particular community in Alaska that they are doing these things. Can I spend time discussing this with you? What are you going to say? No. Go back to reading page one and do your quiz. That will be the model. So my view is, as we get a bit mature, and that's an advice for a facilitator, not necessarily a designer, keep an eye for the things that they drive motivation. And you will witness that in the online discussion fora. Someone will say something interesting, confronting, pick up and make it the key event for the week. You can bring a significant event to them. So you are discussing a theory. I'm going back to health because health always has interesting things. So we are discussing public services in this country and how everything is wonderful. And the world around us is collapsing. There's a new minister and introduce totally different things. Your design is 6 months behind this development. There's nothing in this new way of doing things. Are you going to close your eyes and say, no, study exactly what I told you? Or you will bring this new concept and say, I want you to study everything, but in relation to the current reality. So currency of the online space is a very important thing. So 3 models, not antagonistic, but they build to each other. This advocates what we do, very safe and very good to do. This one takes you more to the idea of collaboration and community, and mine that takes you more to the idea of currency and more of ad hoc opportunities, like surprises in the class, parks, things that they can keep the class going, from you and from the student's point of view, which is quite good. Now, in the online facilitation space, are we almost finishing? Yeah, we are. It's for that. Yes. I just want to mention online discussions are the most used tools for fully online distance learners across the globe. Still are. People are keep using online discussions, endless amounts of academics that will spend time reading 100 messages from students to think. They feel the need to comment on everything because if I don't do it, my students they will feel disengaged and so on. We have to be very pragmatic and realistic here, guys. We propose that these things are kind of, there's a way for you to read the online discussions. Just in a nutshell, we are talking about people that they do make strong contributions and people that they just add something for the sake of adding something in the discussion board. It is your job to keep an eye about how these things are developed, but your job is not necessarily to read and critique every single thing in the online space. It's not sustainable, it's not even productive in that space. So having a way, and you need to find this based on your own way of communicating, how you interact with people, to summarize and having a way to bring to the front of the online discussion the most worthwhile comments and then use them as a way to drive the discussion is one of the most efficient ways of doing it. An example will be discuss reading X, and everybody goes in a very boring way and they said, reading X is about online effective collaboration, Panos mentions 1, 2, 3. The second person goes and says, yes, I agree, it is about that. And the other person goes and says, yes, it's about that, but also he mentions that, and they keep building, and you are 120 messages down, but you don't think they're doing enough. You're not going to bother now to go there and just say, thank you very much for your contribution, you are wonderful, and so on. What you will say is, thank you guys, I read 130 things. I agree that you all understood the basics, but still no one has questioned this important aspect. Can I please build on that? So you send almost like a proactive and reactive thing. That's how I play it. The proactive is you going there and prompt new things to happen by signaling that you pay attention, but you're not there to mark every discussion forum. The reactive is for the students around how they will go and build on it. So finding the points in the discussion forum that is worthwhile spending your time. And the reason I'm saying this is because the number of students, the time of activity, and the time you spend is it's something that you need to pay extremely. You have to be very careful. I have academics complaining that their workloads is absorbed by reading online discussion boards for the distance learners, that they will never, ever, ever, ever do in a face-to-face. You will never pay individual. Imagine me trying to ask each of you to tell me your points, and I provide feedback. we need to plan this for 2 weeks ongoing session. So what I'm doing is I'm testing, I'm looking that you are at least following, and I'm guessing that people are going to also be able to absorb this at a later stage. On average, I'm going to finish with that. We have what we call fixed time for the online and variable time. Fixed time is the absolute minimum time you and the student will spend just to do the absolutely basics, which is to log on, to click and do the basic download and reading or watch a video, is the ones that they already been designed for. The variable is all the unexpected things, which is the discussion went really, really, really well, but you haven't actually planned for this. How you're going to go about, you have always to be very, very careful. On average, that comes from the literature, they suggest that minimum an academic will spend per student in the online space around 5 minutes just to check that they are doing something. Yeah? If you are going that route. If you have 100 students, multiply it, and that's only do the basic moderation, the facilitation. Yeah? It's a lot. That is if you log in every second day or third day, in the Sakai, you click, and you click to see if the discussion is working, this is working, this is working, and then you just follow a particular student to see what's happening. If you go down that route, please calculate that in your workload. If you go to the click where it says, this design is pretty much designed and then it's self-sustained, and my job as an academic is to be with you every Monday and Friday to give you feedback about what you should be doing and building to the next week, is a different model of facilitation. You cannot do all of them for everybody. You may want to do the first one for year one and newcomers, and you can ask the students as they mature to take on their own responsibilities. It's a very important thing to have. And the variable time inflates. So, in summary, and we have a couple of questions, so we are just thinking. It's down to, you know better yourselves what the students should be doing. Yeah? You have the designs in your heads, you are experts in your discipline areas, and you pretty much know what skills the students should be developing. The job of the design teams and the way we work with them is we communicate this in a clear way, and we receive advice as much as we can about the possibilities that they are after, and potentially methodology. But at the end of the day, I said to the academics, if what you see as the final course is something you are objecting before you even start yourself, you just believe it's so complicated or has so many things, it's a very bad start. You have to be absolutely comfortable that this design that you've seen in the online space talks to the way you want to teach. That's why I will never ever stand in front of an audience and advocate that everything is a 5 stages, or everything is a ring fence, or everything is a model X and Y. But from all of them, the 3E methodology is the one that helps me at least navigate myself around the way that I can increase complexity with my units and my modules. Okay? So it was very short, 1.5 hours for this type of thing, but I hope it gave you a bit of a thinking about how you can go about design. Don't know, I mean, if there is any urgent question or it was a lot of information.
Just before Panos asks questions, can I ask you, I see you're all packing away, just in your packs there is a feedback form. Santi will send it out as an email as well if you want to do it electronically, but if it's, I know we never get responses from that, we struggle to. So please, if you can, while listening to the questions, just complete this form. And then the what do you call this? Attendance register, please just complete this as well. Okay, so you can ask Panos a question, Suzanne.
All of these are available to you, and the activities, these things, empowering and doing, they all exist also in the online space to give you opportunities. So I'm going to share with them. Thank you.
I've got two questions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask them both because they must be related. What I pick up is that lecturers struggle with the students' motivation
Yes.
to take part in online discussions or anything that's like a forum or a wiki or
Yes.
something like that. How do you plan for that motivation? To get yours, because I know one method is just to make it count marks, but then I ended up studying a first year module last year,
Yes.
some strange thing, but I could skip all the quizzes and still pass with a 70%.
Honestly speaking, if my students can demonstrate the learning outcomes of everything I designed for without engaging with anything, I have no problem at all.
Okay.
That's the honest answer. But that's the thing. So your design, so if you do readings and then you do online discussions, and the online discussion is this horrific thing, please discuss this reading, then I expect no motivation. I'm honest. And I've seen that in many cases. If though the discussion is, you will be a professional in 3 years' time in your area of study, and these are two documents that they provide two very contrasting things. I want you to engage in this discussion to identify what is the most meaningful way around. That will start up the motivation. So answer one is that discussion fora are not just magic discussion starters. In the same way that for you to warm up and do a discussion, you needed a prompt. You need a little activity to write down 3 things before you come to a discussion. Going to the market, so actually design it around a scenario, design it around a bigger thing. That's one. If you are to give marks, we call them engagement or participation marks, and we have a very clear rubric around it. And the rubric is not about how many discussions you have done, but it is about, for us, it's about what contribution you have made to the discussion forum, and name it, show it to us by quoting, that helped other people think, and what contributions other people made to the discussion forum that help you think. So what I need is 1 A4 with 2 quotes, your best quotes, and why this was played a role. And the discussion, it becomes a bit of competition. They try to ask more difficult questions and so on. So there's a lot of things you can do in the communication element to make them help. So if you give marks, don't please count you have 20 posts and you have 3 posts. Because the person who made 1 post, it might be the most thought-provoking post that you've made. So look for online participation rubrics. There's a lot of examples. But my advice is use the outcome of the discussion as the accessible thing, not the discussion itself. Because people, they have different ways of writing. And some of the students, they might come and say, I didn't make a single contribution that I think helped others, but I was so much helped by this and this and this and this and this. And they're still equally valued as position. Don't know if that helps a bit the conversation.
Then I just want to know, do your lecturers have like demis or assistants or someone who helps with like the emotional and social presence on the LMS sites? Because there's a lot of work to also scaffold and help the students. And
in terms of academic support, like
yes, like on the LMS sites. Is that only in the hands of the lecturers, or do they have help?
So in our university, we have the unit convener, the module owner, if you want to call it. And if it is a big class, and by big class, most of the time we're talking about over 100 students, they might be assigned a casual academic or a casual, sometimes a PhD students, that we assign them a particular kind of mentoring role. And we will put this into that position. If you have 800 students in an introduction to criminology unit online, as we do, in that case, the socialization thing happens almost through the community itself, by the students actually throwing the messages and they develop. Because it's very, very important to do it. That. Any last other questions, anything you would like to know? Look at the 3, Google it. It will come up with at least 20 exemplars of things. And as an activity for you, if you want, just take your existing designs and see how they map. And then meet with the team in the learning and teaching and discuss, oh, can I try this? I have an idea of taking this to the next stage. And that will help you. don't buy in the idea that everything has to be super wow. Don't ask the director to pay flights to France or to wherever for you to do this. Low tech is actually quite good. It works really well. And the distance learners, they appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to close now because it is time. So thank you very much,
Pleasure, guys.
Prof. Panos. I think we got some very good, I don't want to call it tips, but design things that we need to think about when we're in the online space to do the design effectively. I also want to encourage all the academics to have a look at, I think in 2 weeks' time, our academic professional calendar, professional development calendar will be available, and there's a lot of focus specifically for online learning as well, and engaging with online learning. So I'm asking you to join those sessions because that's good planning time and thinking time, because what Prof. Panos is saying is it does take time, and you have to hear it again and you have to think about it again before you actually make a decision. So please look out for that calendar and join the sessions that also speaks to these kind of things. Thank you very much.
No,
thank you for coming.
Yes, guys. Thank you to the online people as well, if they're still there.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, online people.
That we are talking about you anyway.